Hey guys, you can now support this show and make your life 50% better by going to patreon.com/The System Is Down and signing up for the Downers Club, where you're going to get access to a plethora of wild, crazy, and often offensive bonus audio and video episodes of the show on a weekly basis. For more information, just go to patreon.com/The System Is Down. The following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net. Today's episode is sponsored by the 29 Toes podcast. If at any point during this episode you find yourself a little too uncomfortable and triggered, you can head over to 29toes.com and kind of decompress your brain a little bit, where they're just having casual, laid-back, fun, funny conversations about things that are going on in their lives, in the world, things in media and entertainment, all that fun stuff. So check them out at 29toes.com or wherever podcasts are sold.
Welcome to the System Is Down.
What's up, Downers? Welcome back to the least comfortable show on the web. The System Is Down, the place where we talk about all the uncomfortable topics, all the things that you probably just got in trouble for bringing up around the Thanksgiving dinner table last week. The things like conspiracies, politics, religion, the things that Uncle Steve gets annoyed with you bringing up because he just doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Things like the JFK assassination. If you're new here, welcome to the show. Go find the person who invited you, give them a big Thanksgiving kiss on the mouth and a slap on the rear from me, because I appreciate you being here. And if you're one of the many people who tune in to the show every single Monday morning for your weekly dose of discomfort, welcome back. It's always a pleasure to have you, and I appreciate you more than I could possibly say. Today's episode is the continuation and the conclusion of my conversation with the great Ole Dammegard on the JFK assassination, as it was the 55-year anniversary this week of the JFK assassination, and in my opinion, there are few, if any, people who are more qualified to speak on this topic than Ole Dammegard. So if you missed last week's episode, that was the first half of this conversation, and we are literally just jumping straight back in where we left off. There's not going to be any preface, any previously on the System Is Downs or anything like that. So if you missed the last one, please go check that out first at tsidpod.com, or, wherever you're listening to this last week. Go listen to that one first, because otherwise you're going to be a little bit in the dark jumping into this. Not a whole lot else to say here other than please go join the Downers Club and support the show at patreon.com/The System Is Down and get a bunch of weekly bonus audio and video content for as little as $5 a month. That's it. So without further ado, here's the continuation and the conclusion of my conversation on the John F. Kennedy assassination with the great Ole Dammegard. Let's get weird. Now, real quick, I'm curious. Well, you said that you suspect that Lee Harvey Oswald knew that this was coming and that he was going to be, it was going to be pegged on him. Why would he choose to be in the area? Why wouldn't he run for his life and leave the country?
No, it's a very good question. The reason for that was that when you know how these agencies work, it's not easy to hide. And also, he had two baby girls together with Marina. Marina was there as well, and Judith Very Baker, the woman that he really loved. Mm-hmm. So he felt that he was risking all of their lives if he did not just carry out. He did not say anything to the people that were trying to frame him. Absolutely not. They didn't expect anything, because then he had been killed right away, because he knew way too much at that point as well about many, many different operations, and also this super secret bioweapon against Fidel Castro. That was so that was the reason, I would say.
Sure.
So I was, in my heart, when you look at Lee Harvey Oswald, I don't see a traitor. I don't see a coward, a sniper. I see a hero that sacrificed his life with the hope of of stopping the assassination of JFK, even though he knew that he was going to he was going to give up his life for it.
Right. Absolutely. Now, you said that you feel like you've kind of pinpointed some of these 10 to 12 men that carried out the attack. Do you want to jump into that?
Yeah, for sure. Like the Operation 40, this ultra-secret hit team were one of the people that was deeply involved as a paymaster. The one that funneled the funds into that was a young man by the name of Judge Herbert Walker Bush. That's George Bush Sr. Right. He was the paymaster of that hit team that was put together by Richard Nixon. Okay, so we have very high-level people involved there. And so if you look at, if we go around, the building opposite the Texas School Book Depository is called the Daltex building. In that building, on the second floor, there was one shooter, one spotter, and some other people in that room. And if I'm correct, the shooter was a man called Chucky Nicoletti. He was a hit guy, a hitman from Sam Giancana in Chicago, the Chicago mob. He was the shooter. The spotter, that's the person with that checks with binoculars, sure, but also makes sure that there are no cartridges left, that there are nothing left as well. Normally these teams are of 2 or 3. It's one shooter, one spotter, and one breakdown guy if they're 3. The breakdown guy takes care of the weapon, take it apart, put it in a case or whatever. All 3 of them go in different directions very quickly. Boom, boom, boom. Right. But in this case, there were 2, shooter and a spotter. The spotter was a man called Tony Izquierdo, who is very closely associated to Operation 40. There's even a statue of him in Miami today, Tony Izquierdo. It's very bizarre how these killers have gone fame, but it's sure, very often, traitors triumph when heroes hang, as they say. Right. So they make statues of themselves. Anyway, so there was Chucky Nicoletti, the shooter, and Tony Izquierdo, the spotter. George Bush Sr. was in that room as well on the second floor in the Daltex building, together with a man that also belonged to Operation 40. His name was Johnny Rosselli. He was a former hitman from Al Capone, but he became sort of the go-between guy between Hollywood, Las Vegas, the mob, and the CIA. He was a very glamorous type of person. He was there as well. And the guy who let them into this building, it was a mining office that was controlled by the CIA, was a mob guy from California called Jim Braden. He was the one that let them in. So that's the Daltex building. Then if we move across the street, across Houston Street, you have the Texas School Book Depository, where witnesses saw 3 people on the 6th floor. Some of them with rifles. They thought it was the Secret Service and so on. Also from the local jail, they saw them across the street. So the guys up there from the right, his name was Eladio del Valle. He was a former Cuban agent who was also part of Operation 40. He was the shooter. Then there was a black man called, also part of Operation 40. His name was Herminio Diaz Garcia. He was the spotter. And then there was a second shooter on the 6th floor, but to the left, sort of. And his name was either Richard Kane, from a hit guy from the Chicago mob as well, or Malcolm Wallace, which was Lyndon B. Johnson, the vice president's own hit guy. He committed at least 8 homicide or murders for Johnson, among them Johnson's own sister. I mean, charming guy, horrible, horrible, horrible. Sure. But anyway, so they were that were the people in the Texas School Book Depository. And the way they got down there from the 6th floor, down without anyone noticing them in the staircase and so on, was because just before the shots were fired, the electricity was cut, the radios thing, everything was stopped and blocked in the area. And so there was no power in the Texas School Book Depository. And I believe that they used abseiling on the inside of the elevator shaft to get down from the 6th floor without anyone noticing it. Then they came out, people saw them come running out on the back of the building, where they were picked up in a light blue car driven by a man called David Morales, who was also very high up in Operation 40. He drove them over to the Cabana Motor Hotel, which was very close, then came back and picked up Lee Harvey Oswald and took off. So we move on to the layout of Dealey Plaza is very strange, so it's not so easy to explain. But on the other side of the motorcade, away from the Texas School Book Depository, there was one man standing with a big bulletproof vest. Most people have never seen him, but you can see him on the Zapruder film if you know what to look for. So when you look at it, look high up in the building, you will see that there's this guy who he lifts up a gun like in that position at a shooting range. He goes up, boom, and let his arms goes down. And he got a mega big bulletproof vest on him. His name was Walter Zabinski, or is Walter. He's still alive, as far as I know. He lives in Toronto. And his task was, according to what he says himself, to use a tranquilizer gun and shoot Kennedy in the throat. I believe possibly the first shots were fired from him. It was only a few yards away from the limo when that was fired. And the idea was that Kennedy should not be able to duck and dive in the car, but would be paralyzed and then hit from all different directions. This is according to himself, according to a witness that knows him well.
So,
anyway,
so has he come out publicly, or is this just...
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. But he and a shooter on the other side of this, up on the grassy knoll, that shooter up there is his cousin called Clyde Forshaw. These two names are more or less unknown, but these two men have been what they called head cleaners for their whole life, and have taken out at least 1,000 people around these different operations. Car accidents, suicides, drownings. That somebody has to do these things, and these two have been very, very, very active, both in Canada and the U.S., doing these type of things. You will also see that the guy with the bulletproof vest, Walter Tabinski, he's actually the guy. There's some photos where they say that Lee Oswald was down in Mexico City at the Russian embassy, where he comes out, and there's photos taken of Oswald coming out, but it's not Oswald at all, because it is Walter Tabinski, who was part of this whole operation. So on the other side, if you go up the grassy knoll, do you follow me?
Yeah.
There were a guy with an umbrella. He's called the Umbrella Man, and it's a bit strange because he's there with a black umbrella, but it's not raining, right. And he's sort of flashing or flicking the umbrella first, and then like this, just when the motorcade come. There's been a lot of speculation about why he was doing that. Some people think that he had some kind of secret weapon in the umbrella, or that he was doing a statement. As far as I've been able to identify, his name is Roy Hargraves. He was also a guy very closely connected to Operation 40. And his task was to mark the cross point for crossfire, because you cannot have like 12, 15 shooters and then blame it on one guy. If you can hear like dum 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 dum, that is not easily blamed on one person. So you need everybody to fire at the same time.
Right.
So I believe he was there to mark the crossfire position. I don't even think that he knew that. He was just told, you stand there. But they even painted the curb yellow, where there's sort of that, like there was like a death zone. So within the yellow, you're allowed to shoot. And one of the bystanders, a woman that I also met, her name was Beverly Oliver. She was also called the Babushka Lady. She She was standing there, the as close as you can come to the motorcade when the final headshots were fired.
Right.
And she, to this very day, she still has. She showed me the shoes, and there's still this yellow color on it.
So freshly painted.
Yeah, it was totally freshly painted. So Roy Hargraves was the guy there. Then next to him, there's a Cuban guy that is standing out in the street waving like this and almost trying to slow down the limo. And his name was Felipe Vidal Santiago. He was also part of Operation 40. And he later went under the name of Charles Morgan for many years when he went around in the world recruiting patsies and assassins when people were about to be taken out. So he was going in multiple countries. And one of the countries he went to was Sweden 23 years later, when he, a few months before the assassination of the Swedish Prime Minister, was there on location trying to recruit a former soldier of fortune, Ivan von Birchen, to assassinate the Swedish Prime Minister. So there are direct connections to many, many other of these operations. So then if we move, we continue up on the grassy knoll. You got Abraham Zapruder standing up on a white pillar, but there's some very strange white walls. It's difficult to describe them, but there was a white wall up there, and there was a car reversed out, and there's a shooter standing with his elbow up on the roof of the car, firing as well. His name, Clyde Forshaw. He is the cousin of Walter Dubinsky, who was the guy on the other side with the bulletproof vest. Then you come to another wall, very close to it, where there's a corner of the wall, and somebody is kneeling behind this wall in a Dallas police uniform. Next to him, there is a railroad worker. And the shooter, his name was Lucien Sarti. He was a very, very skilled assassin from the Marseille mob in France, he was brought in by the Louisiana mob as part of the shooting. And I believe that the railroad worker next to him was either a man called Charles Frederick Rogers, who was one of the tramps afterwards. Sometime after the assassination, there were 3 people being found in a train wagon, and they were being led by 2 police officers to the police house. And a photographer took photos of these 3, and there's been a big mystery during many years of who these 3 people were. Like the front person, his name was Charles Frederick Rogers, or Carlos Montoya, was his name as well. He was called Frenchie. And he was working for the ONI, the CIA, very, very brutal guy, who was later also used in the assassination of Martin Luther King as the controller of James Earl Ray, the guy that was blamed for that murder. He was, well, it doesn't matter. The tall tramp, his name was Charles Harrelson, and he's actually the father of actor Woody Harrelson. Really? He was a hit guy in Texas, and he died in prison as well. He had shot a judge down there. And then the old tramp, his name was Chauncey Holt. He was a CIA operative, and his task was to bring in Secret Service IDs, fake. Well, they weren't really fake, but they were not real ones. They were created in the exact same factory as the real ones in Los Angeles. And then he transported them there and gave them out to people in the hit team. So Lucien Sarti, then you have next to him there's this railroad worker. And right after the shots, the railroad worker runs on the other side of the picket fence. Lucien Sarti throws the rifle to him, and he picks it apart, puts it down in a toolbox. He was dressed in this railroad worker outfit, and then he walks along the train tracks towards that train car wagon where he gets into, and where the police later picks up Chauncey Holt, Charles Frederick Rogers, and Charles Harrelson. So then you go we continue, and then we come up behind the picket fence where the last final headshots were fired from. And the shooter there, his name is Jimmy Files. He's still alive. He's just been released from prison, James Files, and quite a few people doubt him. But I tell you, if you really listen to him, in the whole puzzle falls into place. And James Files was actually the driver of Chucky Nicoletti, the hitman in the Daltex building. He was only there as a driver, but he was a very skilled shot as well. Hated Kennedy. For him, it's like when he describes it, he said it was like taking out the trash. I mean, these people did not care at all.
So he's come forth and given his own testimony. Huh.
Yeah. You can. There's videos now of his interviews in jail where he describes the whole thing, and he was using a very special weapon called a Remington XP 100, a fireball. Sorry, a fireball is the name of it, and it was a CIA weapon. It's like a rifle, but with the pistol grip, so it's like a very short rifle, but with the whole mechanism, and then you hold it in one hand.
Right.
And he had used special ammunition that he had prepared in Chicago. There was a man there called Wolfman that drilled a hole into the bullets and then filled it with mercury and topped it with wax, meaning that when the impact of the bullet came, it totally exploded. And that is also what makes this horrific impact on the head of JFK.
Yeah. Now, this last guy, sorry, I'm bad with names, but you said that he gave this testimony while he was in prison. What was he actually in prison for?
He was in prison for having tried to kill 2 police officers. That's what they said.
Sure.
But he had no plans on stepping forward at all. I mean, it was only, it's a strange story, but it's also a long story, so I'm not going to go into it.
Sure, that's fine.
But he was not stepping forward to get any credit for it, and it has only messed up his life doing it. So, and also he doesn't know anything about the rest of the operation. He's not interested. He has just come forward with his little part, and it took quite a few years before he fully stepped forward. And it's also because he become a reborn Christian, where he decided to tell this story.
Right.
Hey, Dan Smots here. I'm taking a second to interrupt myself talking to talk about myself because, I don't get paid a penny for the hours and hours that I put into creating this show for you guys in your greedy little ears, and I've got a family to feed. To make that happen, I run my own media business called Goulash Media. If you have a need in anything from video production to graphic design to audio production and beyond, you can get it all for a painfully fair price at Goulash Media. In video, I do weddings, music videos, commercials, pageants, plays, etc., etc., etc. For design, I do photo editing, album art, logos, branding, business cards, merchandise, you name it. For audio, I do engineering, production, editing, jingles, and, podcasts. So if you've got a media need of any kind, or if you'd just like to give a little something back and help keep my children fed, check out all the endless options at my website, goulashmedia.net. That's goulash, Goulash, media.net, where we cater to the little guy with the big vision. Okay.
You also said that a lot of people who say that they saw these 10 or 12 men up in the buildings with rifles, of course they assume that they're Secret Service. Would that have been? I mean, that's what I would have assumed if the president's coming through with no protection or anything. Of course, you're going to have people camped out ready for something like that to happen. Would that normally have been the case, where Secret Service would be up in the buildings like that?
Yeah, no, there were 3 people up there, not 10. There was a total of 12.
Sure, yeah.
But for sure, before the president, wherever he goes, there's always a security team going first, where they go through the whole motorcade They check all the buildings, all windows have to be closed. There will be snipers on the rooftops. There will be, for sure, they would be there. The presence will be very, very notable. Mm-hmm. But here, and people, they saw the rifles up there. They saw people up there, so nobody really thought of anything of it until suddenly, boom, boom, boom.
Right.
The shots were fired, and then within a few seconds, the whole situation dramatically changed.
Yeah. Now, is that all the 12 men? Did we get through them all, or
there's more?
Okay.
There is one down a storm drain. Like under, exactly where. Sorry.
Like a storm drain type.
Storm drain, exactly, where it seems like one shooter was underneath the lid there. I think his name was Frank Sturgis or Roscoe White, I'm not totally sure. Mm-hmm. And there was also on top of some of the other buildings, there was another guy from Operation 40, plus a sheriff, his name was Witherspoon, I think, was also up on the building. So the whole area, there was also one on the south side of Dealey Plaza, but I've never been able to identify whoever that shooter was. Mm-hmm. But there was a pilot there from Operation 40 called Tosh Plumley. He was standing there, and he said that shots were fired right over his head. Mm-hmm. So they had the whole area covered.
Right. Gotcha. Now, how many of these people are still alive now that you're alleging that they took part in this?
Most of them died very violently themselves.
Really?
Yeah, quite a few in the early 70s. Then you came to a point in 77 where there was the House Select Committee of Assassinations that were going to look into this, and where they were calling all of these people in to give their testimonials. Mm-hmm. And lots of people started dying there. Johnny Rosselli was found in a barrel out at sea, chopped up in small little pieces. He was in the Daltex building. You had Eladio Del Valle, the guy up on the 6th floor. He was found, his whole head was mashed up with a machete, and he was shot multiple times. David Ferry, another guy, he was found dead in his bed, but he had been stuffed with medicine that made his system explode from the inside. More or less. Jack Ruby was forced to kill Oswald to shut him up, and Ruby was put in prison and injected with the exact same cancer virus with his SV40 as he had been part of creating for Fidel Castro. Then you have Lucien Sarti. He was killed in Mexico City a few years later. There were quite a few people that got killed down there. You have Roscoe White, the Dallas police officer that came from Chicago as well. He had a so-called accident that something exploded in his face, and he later died from that. You have, this is the way, they live by the gun, they die by the gun. Sure. That is normally the way.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And then what I would like to say is just some connections, because we had David Morales, who was driving the car, picking up the people behind the school book depository, and then picking up Lee Oswald. Okay, he was also present when Robert Kennedy was killed some 5 years later at the Ambassador Hotel. He and the two high operatives in the CIA, George Dionides and Gordon Campbell, were there overseeing the whole operation. Mm-hmm. Even though there were multiple shooters in this little kitchen where it seems like Clyde Forshaw, the shooter near the car, was also one of the shooters there, together with a security guard called Thane Caesar. Then you have when Fidel Castro, he had his second in command, his name was Che Guevara. Mm-hmm. He became sort of a symbol for the communist revolution. So they wanted to get rid of him. And Felix Rodriguez from Operation 40 and David Morales were sent down to track him down, and they found him in Bolivia, where they also executed him, chopped off his hand. It is even said that they chopped off the head and played football with that. So charming people once again.
Classy.
Then you have Jose Perdomo, who was the highest ranking officer in Operation 40. He was actually the doorman standing in the exact position where the shots were fired from that killed John Lennon. Then you have Luis Posada Carillas, also a member of Operation 40. I believe he was the one that led the attack against Bob Marley on Jamaica. And then later, I mean, he died from cancer, but he was given a boot with a cancer. There was a copper wire inside it with a cancer virus on it. And this boot was given to him by a documentary maker that he wanted to make a beautiful documentary about Bob Marley's life just after the other attack by Luis Posada Carillas. And it was the toe that was punctured when Bob tried on these boots that was given as a present to him. It was in that exact toe where he later developed this cancer that finally killed him in 81. Oh. But the guy that gave him the boot, his name was Peter Colby, and he's the son of William Colby, the director of the CIA, who was also involved with Operation 40. So what are the chances?
Right. Then
you have the overtake of Salvador Allende in Chile, 1973. James Files, the shooter behind the picket fence, he was down there, and several other members of Operation 40 as well were down there taking part of that operation. And then the whole Operation Condor in South America with death squads and you name it were directed and controlled by members of Operation 40 who were also in the Vietnam War, where they were part of Operation Phoenix, a mass extinction program there, killing thousands and thousands of Viet Congs. And it just goes on and on. These people have been so active, and they still are. One of them, Porter Goss, he even managed to get to become the director of the CIA under George Bush Jr. I mean, a former assassin, and then he's up there. And he was actually, on the day of 9/11, he was actually having breakfast with a Pakistani colonel, Mahmoud Ahmed, who was the one that transferred $100,000 to the claimed terrorist Mohammed Atta, one of the people that is said to have flown into the buildings, which is an absolute crap story. But we have all of these things where the same people are involved in so much mayhem. It's a small little core group that has carried out so many of these things.
Right. Now, you've made a lot of large claims. I'm not, disagreeing. I'm curious, most people, when they think of the conspiracy behind the JFK assassination, they think, oh, there was another shooter or two other shooters that were working along with, Oswald. So George Bush Sr. becomes president after this. And you said at the beginning that you think that JFK was the last official or the last real president of the United States. Can you speak more to that?
It's when you see, first of all, I just want to say what I've just given you, it's taken me 35 years of my life finding out. I was also invited twice as a speaker at the JFK Assassination Conference in Dallas. Mm-hmm. I was also there asked to represent the people of Europe to give a talk after the Silent Minute in Dealey Plaza. And I know personally quite a few of the people that were there as witnesses or involved, even that has worked as assassins and so on. Mm-hmm. I'm a close friend of George Bush Sr.'s private hitman, Chip Tatum. So these things, I'm not just throwing them out there lightly. Right. It's based on a lot of research.
Absolutely.
So sorry, what was your question? I lost the thread.
Well, I was just wanting you to get into more. You said that JFK was the last real president.
When you start seeing how the New World Order, how they work, and how the agenda is this global overtake, one of the things that they've used are the same team of assassins for many, many, many eliminations or terminations of people around the globe. And this team has been used in many, many different areas, like I mentioned, where George Bush have been the guy who were in control of the hit team. And this hit team, Operation 40, has then followed him through his whole career. And this career has gone into so many of these dark areas. So the exact same people that were involved there were also the people in the key center of of the Iran-Contra scandal, where the weapons were stolen from the National Guard, then transported in big military planes, C-130s, down to countries like Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras. Chip Tatum, actually the guy that I just mentioned, he was one of the pilots, together with one of the other pilots, Barry Seal, who was also part of Operation 40. And then they worked together with a man called Oliver North, who was the middleman between Bush and Chip Tatum and the other people in this whole thing. And they built up what they called the Enterprise, where they put together the different drug cartels down in Colombia and put it in. They made it like into an industry where they produced raw cocaine. That was then, the weapons were delivered in these countries, where the whole mass extinction program down there was carried out by the death squads of the Contras. And then all of these tons and tons of drugs were being brought back into the US, where they started the whole crack epidemic. And now it is not only me who is claiming this, but it's coming out more and more that the two kingpins in this whole crack epidemic was George Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton at that time. They were even being filmed when they received these drugs. They used specific small airports, especially one in Mena, Arkansas, the exact same state where Bill Clinton was a young governor there. And he was the one, together with his partner in crime, Don Lasseter. They were the ones that received the drugs and then distributed it out to LA, Chicago, Florida, and so on. Some of these transports also went to Miami, where the drug transports were received by George Bush Jr. and Jeb Bush, and then lower key people that took over the whole distribution. But all of these people have been filmed in these positions. Also, like Barry Seal, the Operation 40 pilot, he was the one that was working very closely to Pablo Escobar and other of these very, very high up drug dealers. So, I didn't answer your question. So, what do I mean by when you look at the power that took over when Kennedy died? You always have to see, when somebody is killed, who takes over, who benefits from somebody's passing. And here, the people that came into power are the ones that have then carried on. Like Johnson, Kennedy wasn't even buried before Johnson signed the document that started the whole Vietnam War. It was, just within it wasn't even 24 hours, I think, before Johnson signed that started the whole Vietnam War. Right. And then the presidents after, you have Richard Nixon, that was a former vice president, but now he became the president afterwards, who was also part of creating Operation 40 and killing Kennedy. He became president. Then you have Gerald Ford, who was he was in the Warren Commission. The Warren Commission was put together to cover the whole thing up. That was the whole idea. They made a massive, I think it was like 26 thick volumes of documents showing absolutely nothing, in total chaos. I mean, you couldn't find anything. There were even studies of Lee Harvey Oswald's pubic hair. I mean, all kinds of that, but nothing really looking at what actually happened. And so Gerald Ford was one of the people in the Warren Commission, and then he was later the president. Right. To know how and one of the things these presidents have done is that they pardoned the one before, right, and then so they stay clear of all of these crimes that they've committed over the years.
Mm-hmm. Do you think? I mean, does that carry on today? I mean, we have people that dig into, and this is kind of a side tangent. We can get back to JFK whenever you like, but I'm curious as to like. I mean, we've got people who dig into conspiracies, and they're into this whole QAnon phenomenon, and saying that Donald Trump is, going to change things, and he's the next JFK or whatever. Do you put any stock in that type of rhetoric?
I'm not really interested in politics.
Sure.
I'm only interested in stopping and exposing crimes and criminals.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Hillary, I mean, you see a politician, I see a mass murderer.
Mm-hmm. She
She has a body count. I don't know how many people she and Bill just in their private life have gotten rid of. I mean, it's in a very scary long row of dead bodies that have followed them. When it comes to Trump, he's the first one where there's a question mark,
Mm-hmm.
because he is almost like a joker. I don't know his task, but it's almost like what his job is to create confusion and look over here, so that
Right.
we don't really focus on what is going on. Most people are, have you seen what Trump just tweeted this or tweeted that, and did you hear he said this stupid thing here or that stupid wall there? So you keep the focus away from what's actually going on. And I think there's a much darker agenda rolling out that is the thing that we should focus on instead of just checking his tweets.
Sure.
And also take the power back, because, I mean, one of the major reasons we are in this mess is because we put our power to these people that have just turned out to be absolutely corrupted and with an agenda of their own.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well. Did you have anything else to add to the JFK story, or we're good there?
Do you want another 4 hours? I mean,
Right.
I hope that maybe I've given the listener a feeling of that we're looking at a much broader picture than normally is presented.
Mm-hmm.
Most people think it was a murder of a president in a town in Texas, or city in Texas, but I tell you, there was a global overtake that happened that day, and it has affected us to this very day.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why it's important to keep digging around in it.
Mm-hmm.
And also because these people are dying off, there's very few left now, and it's only with the help of these people that we can really come to a real and better understanding. And I also want to say, if Trump was who he says he is,
Mm-hmm.
is there any reason to keep any top secret documents away from us to this
Right.
very day?
Right.
Any reason? I tell you, if I would become president, not that it will ever happen, but anyone with the right intention would just say, let it all free. I mean, there's not, whatever crap there's there,
Mm-hmm.
let's deal with it, bring it up to the surface, and let's look at it.
Yeah.
But that's not what it's done. Every time they say, okay, we're going to release this, we get a little, it's like throwing a bone to a dog,
Mm-hmm.
and then the real stuff is kept away from us. Even, and also it's been threaded a long, long time ago, I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this could be very easily exposed
Yeah.
if the intention was there.
Yeah. Has there been in these more recent releases of JFK documents? Has there been anything substantial that's come out? New evidence in that?
Some, I haven't had time to look so much at it because there's been so many false flag operations going on. So,
Sure.
so I kept my focus there. But
Mm-hmm.
if you want to, I might be able to get Judith Very Baker on your show
That'd
one
be
day.
fantastic. Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah, I can. She's right now. She's arranging the JFK conference in Dallas, so. But maybe afterwards.
Sure. Yeah. Just feel free to send me your information.
That
Yeah, but if you feel good, if you have nothing else to add, I think we've covered quite a bit of ground here.
I think so too. So let's be nice, fine with that.
Sure. Well, yeah, Ole, it's always a pleasure having you on. I always appreciate it. Let everybody know where they can find out more information about you and your books, your speeches, and everything you've got going on.
Well, my website, once it's up again, inshallah, in a few hours here, I hope after 6 weeks, it's lightonconspiracies.com, lightonconspiracies.com. It is a massive website because also what we're trying to do is get other researchers that are being shut down in different areas to get their material there, so that even if they get shut down by YouTube or harassed by Google or shut down on Facebook, that the material will be able to get into the open light anyway, which is also one of the reasons I think we were targeted. So we normally publish 3 to 5 new articles per day, new interviews, and so it's a massive website. I'm on Patreon, where we do a lot of interviews that are just for patrons, members only. I also do what is called daylights. I do about three every week, where it's like an update of what's going on, but also hopefully something that will empower people to get. There's so many fearful people and people in distress, so I'm trying to lift them and unite people. So that's on Patreon. Then I'm on all the rest on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. My Facebook page is almost like a underground headquarters when it comes to exposing upcoming false flag terror attacks.
Sure.
Because the drills are always one of the things that is a giveaway about an upcoming one.
Right.
So I get reports from all over the world about these drills, and so we publish them, pointing out, saying, boom, be aware, there. And then if the signs of a real attack is building up, then I get people on location to go there and be there ready with cameras and so on. So hopefully we can diffuse these different attempts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I got multiple books on Amazon or my website. Coup d'etat in slow motion, which is about the assassination of the Swedish Prime Minister, but with all the connections into JFK, Mali, Lenin, also the Iran-Contras. I mean, it's all connected. It's almost 1,000 pages, coup d'etat in slow motion. And I got a book called Shadow of Tears, about how I took a bicycle down to Iran, ended up in the middle of the war, helped to smuggle people out through former Russia and East Germany up to Sweden. So it's a true story, Shadow of Tears. And then I've got another one called Remind Me, about how to reset your mind, how to deal with difficult situation, how to, like for instance, I'm officially under threats and a lot of stress most of the time,
right.
But I don't let it affect me. And people sometimes ask me, how do you do it? And this is what I share. It's a little book you can read it in like an hour, a little power book.
Sure.
And then I've got a children's book called Yolanda Yogapanda, Truth is One, Paths Are Many. And also my partner and sweetheart, Kim Kamala Ekman, has written a book called So What Can I Do?, which is especially aimed at people that are in the process of starting to see what the hell is going on
right.
now when the fog is lifting. And so many people ask me and other researchers, okay, now I'm starting to understand, but so what can I do? So she had the exact same question. So what she did was she put together a list of 14 questions and then did Skype interviews with David Icke, Dr. Kevin Barrett, Sophia Smallstone, Carrie Cassidy, Cynthia McKinney, myself, Sam Gardner, Max Egan. And then she had taken these interviews and just put them into transcripts from the interviews and put them into a book form.
Very
and
cool.
And it's in multiple languages, that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, real quick to kind of wrap up here, is there anything that you want to say to like future generations as to like why this story is so important to keep alive and keep digging into and keep perpetuating into the future?
when you walk around in the streets and you look around in life, do you think things are the way they should be? Do you think that things is totally out of balance? Is there a lot of weird things going on that you don't understand? Is there a lot of signs showing that we're being pushed into a very controlled life where there's no space for creativity, for free thoughts, and so on? If this is what you feel, and you start seeing chemtrails in the skies, and that people are getting really sick from vaccines and ADHD and all kinds of strange symptoms, and food being messed up with GMOs and so on. If you feel that, hang on, something bizarre is going on, then it is a good idea to start informing yourself, trying to find out what is actually going on. And you will see that whatever area at this point you start digging into, may it be vaccinations or chemtrails or assassinations or false flags or you name it, or unjust wars or pedophile trafficking or gun running or you name it, you will find, I can almost guarantee you, that the deeper you dig into it, it will take you back to the same center point. And it's almost like the head of an octopus. So it's coming back, and it's that head that I'm doing everything, and I devoted my life to expose what is actually going on. I've chosen my parts, but that will lead these parts. I've also done everything I can to expose the people and the forces involved in this whole thing. And so is it important to understand the JFK assassination? Definitely. Because if you look at the assassination of JFK, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, had these three people been left alive, had they been left to do good in the world, this world would have been a totally different planet than we're living on in today. You cannot even compare it.
Sure.
So this, I believe, is why it's very important to find out who did it, why did they do it, what are they up to now, and then let's use the truth to expose it and transcend it, stop this madness, and let's heal the world.
Absolutely. Very well said. And again, Ole, it's always a pleasure. Great work that you're doing. I love every bit of it, and I would highly recommend everybody go check it out. lightonconspiracies.com is the website again, and there'll be links to all of that in the show notes and description. So, Ole, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and keep up the great work, sir.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed the conclusion of my conversation on the JFK assassination with Ole Dammegard. I think that this is a really important conversation to keep having, because as time goes on, we are forgetting more and more and more about how bizarre some of these things are. Even 9/11, which happened in my lifetime, there are things about it that people just forget. They forget that there were a whole lot of oddities surrounding some of these conspiracies, and it's really important that we keep the story alive, we keep digging, we keep asking the questions, and we keep, staying uncomfortable with these things. So, yeah, thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys had a great week. I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you had some good downtime with your family, and you made them maybe just a tad bit uncomfortable by bringing up Lee Harvey Oswald, John F. Kennedy, or whatever topic most tickles your fancy. And I hope you, rustled some jimmies and ruffled some feathers. But, the Downers Club. If you're not already a member, go join it. Patreon.com/The System Is Down. That's the way that we keep making the show bigger and better. And I'm doing every single thing in my power, to my knowledge, to make the show the best viewing and listening pleasure for you guys, and give you guys the most information, get the best guests on, all that stuff. Every penny that you guys contribute is going right back into the show, right back into making it a better experience for you guys. So patreon.com/The System Is Down. Go there, sign up for the Downers Club for as little as $5, which is a cup of coffee a month. It's basically nothing. You won't even miss it. You won't even realize it's gone. So, also, please go like, share, and subscribe to all the things, all the Twitters, all the Facebooks, all the YouTubes, all the whatnots, all the things that millennials are addicted to. Go. I mean, don't go join any of these platforms for me or this show. Go. You're already there. You know, you already signed up for the things. I'm not gonna make you feel bad and make you feel like you should go sign up for, the devil's army of Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, but you're already there, so you might as well go click a button. It takes 2 seconds, costs you nothing, and it'll keep you updated and informed on what is going on with the show. Same with iTunes. Please go go subscribe to the show on iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating and a review and let people know what they're getting involved in. If they start listening to the show, let them know that it is a blast and a great time, I feel like, and I know you do too. And as you're going through your week, please continue to spread the word about the show. Tell somebody about the show. Tell somebody about what you've learned today, because I'm sure you didn't know everything about the assassination of 35th United States President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Bring it up. See what people think. You will be surprised to find, I believe, there are more people than you would suspect think that this is not what they say it is. This is not, the official story is not true. I'm pretty confident that if you poll 10 people in a bar while you're just having a good time, you just go up to them and ask them, do you think that the official story for JFK is true? You're probably going to find more than 50% of them don't believe it. Don't believe that that's true. So bring it up. Bring it up. It needs to be brought up. It needs to be discussed in a civil manner. You need to like I always say, have these conversations without a condescending attitude. We're all humans in this experiment that is life. We're all walking different paths. We all come from different upbringings, walk different paths, come to different conclusions. The person you're talking to might know more than you. Keep an open mind. You might know more than them, so know what you have to say, know what you believe, and know why you believe it, and be willing to defend it, but do so in a kind and loving and civil manner. All right, I think that's all that I've got for today. That's enough preaching, enough rambling here at the end. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Thank you guys who support the show with your hard-earned and much appreciated dollars, and even thank you to everyone who tunes in for free every single week. As you tune in, as you download the show, as you subscribe to the show, that helps boost the numbers, which means it helps get us into the algorithms of the iTunes and all the different platforms. It helps us get noticed by different people. It puts us in new ears and lets new people obtain new information. That's the whole point of the show. The point of the show is not to say this is this and that is that. I know what things are. It's to say, look at this, look at that. Let's talk about it. These are things that a lot of people avoid talking about, so let's keep having the conversation. Let's keep the conversation going. And the party that is the show, it's not all serious. It's not all just, gloom and doom. This is just expanding our minds and doing so in a fun, informative manner. So, blah, blah, blah. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you, and I love you, and thank you for keeping the show going. And, of course, if you'll have me, I'll be right back here in your ear canal first thing next Monday morning with some more uncomfortable conversations for you. Until then, please continue to question everything and stay uncomfortable. Thanks. This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.